Shabbat Shalom. So we are currently, for those of you that are regulars, you'll know, in the middle of a sequel of different sermons that have to do with the stories of our kings. Many people, unfortunately, stop reading from their Tanakh, from their Bible, somewhere, well, often a few chapters in the Genesis, but somewhere at the very end of Deuteronomy, maybe, and they don't quite get into the story of the kings, and they don't figure as prominently in our Haftarot selection as we might like. So, trying to bring a little awareness to the lessons that are there, and indeed there is an excellent lesson that lines up beautifully with this week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, we are reminded most passionately that life is full of choices between the good and the bad. And no king exemplifies choosing both good and bad as King Josiah. Now, King Josiah is one of the two good kings that comes after David, Hezekiah being the previous. But, as I just said, he does make some bad choices. Well, let's talk about the good stuff first. The good stuff is that Josiah is most well known for being the great reformer. He is the king that put the kingdom of Judah, the southern part of Israel, back on track towards God. He destroyed the idols, burnt their altars, prosecuted those who had committed heinous crimes, and basically got the entire nation headed in the right direction. Indeed, celebrating, as it says, Pesach, Passover, in a way that had not been done since we first entered the land hundreds of years prior to him. That is pretty amazing, and given the direction the kingdom was headed, without Josiah's reforms, we might not be here. Clearly, he comes up as a very good king. So what's the bad part? Well, need a little preface first. You see, things were so bad during the time of Josiah that in addition to the various reforms he was making, he also wanted to consult with the prophetess, that's a female prophet, Huldah. And yes, there were women who were also prophets. It was not only a man's job. And he goes to her and consults, and she says, indeed, God is very pleased with the reforms you're making and all of the changes that you're bringing about for the people. And that is why, despite the crimes of the people, you will at least be able to live and die in peace. It's quite a nice prophecy, given how dangerous of a neighborhood it was and how horrible the civil wars had been in Israel. Being promised that even if the people didn't quite shape up, he at least would be able to have a peaceful life. That would be nice. Which is why we're surprised that he dies in battle. How does he die in battle, though? Well, because ancient geopolitics, and it is not only in the modern world that people are fighting in the Middle East, it's been going on for a very, very long time. You see, the Assyrian kingdom to the north, roughly centered around where the modern-day country of Syria is, and the Egyptian kingdom in the south, roughly centered around where the modern country of Egypt is, they were having a little bit of a tiff. And guess who's in between? Us. Our little country is sandwiched between these two great empires. They basically play tennis with us of which one will dominate that region over time. And Josiah saw that King Necho from Egypt was on his way with his army heading north. He was going to go give those Assyrians a good thrashing, as the Egyptians would do, and the Assyrians would do back in the opposite. But this time it was Egypt's turn. And Josiah said, you're not coming through my country with your army. Right? Not having it. Nope, you don't get to come here with your army. It's our country. We don't want to have anything to do with this. Turn around, go home. And King Necho attacked and killed him. Because it turns out Egypt had a really, really big army, and Josiah didn't. So he lost. He was murdered in battle, and Egypt then put a puppet on the throne and carried him away, and it was the beginning of the end for our people. And our tradition says, bad choice, Josiah. You should have just let him go through. Why did you have to go out? I mean, you knew you couldn't win in the field of battle, so why did you do it? And more importantly, doesn't that mean the prophet Huldah was wrong? She said he'd die peacefully, and yet slain on a battlefield doesn't exactly seem to fit peacefully. Well, our commentaries, and there are of course multiple opinions, offer a few explanations. One, he died peacefully in the sense that he didn't see the ultimate destruction that would come to Israel. He died before it got much worse. He died before he could see the people relapse into their sinning and bring about the downfall of our nation. So he was peaceful in a spiritual sense, even if he was dead by being stabbed and dying on a battlefield. Because after all, the spirit is more important than the body, so he really did die at peace. Most of the commentators say, yeah, I'm not so sure that that really fits the definition of peaceful that most of us would be comfortable with. And so the Tosafot, one of the great medieval commentary collectives, offers a different opinion. They say, look, Huldah gave him this prophecy that he would die peacefully. But that doesn't mean it is an ironclad guarantee. It's not like some prophecy in a movie. This is a prophecy as the prophet sees the future if the current condition stays the same. So when a prophet prophesies that something is bad and something bad will happen, if things stay bad, the bad thing will happen. If the prophet prophesies that something is good and good things will happen, then if the good things stay the course, the good things that were prophesied will come true. But if you are bad and you change, what we call teshuvah, which is the whole concept within Judaism that allows us to redeem ourselves from our mistakes, to change what we've been doing, to ask for forgiveness and to be a better person, then anything that had been prophesied or an edict that had been laid down because of what we had done gets torn up. Well, the same happens for the good stuff. That if you had been given a promise of a peaceful death, and then you choose, in contradiction to what God wanted at that time, to go out and fight a battle that you couldn't win and shouldn't be fighting, all bets are off. Sorry. My promise of a peaceful death for you was if you were intelligent and doing the right thing. You want to go out and fight Egypt with tiny little Judean army, you know, you're on your own, bud. You made that choice, and you are going to suffer the consequences. Now, that may not sound very fair, but that is precisely what fair is. Imagine if it had been that prophecy and Josiah's misunderstanding of it that emboldened him to go out and fight. He believed himself invincible, right? I can't die in battle. I've been promised my peaceful death. And if that had been his motivation, then not only would he be spitting in the face of all that God believes to be right and true, but he would be leading other members of his own nation into their deaths, even if he himself had been promised a peaceful one. Would it have been better if he had survived, but 10,000 soldiers on our side had died pointlessly? And we would have said, oh, well, at least the prophecy came true and he had a peaceful... No, that would have been just as bad, if not worse. Because we should never believe ourselves so secure, so perfect in our righteousness and in receiving God's blessing, that we can just drive down the freeway at 120 miles an hour knowing nothing bad can happen because I am blessed by God. Our choices matter. Our decisions matter. And the blessings are waiting for us. The gift that God has prophesied will come true, but we have to play our part. We are not passengers, we are not spectators within the drama of our own lives, and nor are we allowed to be irresponsible with ourselves and our world around us. Josiah teaches us from both sides of his life this lesson more powerfully than almost any other king, about the power of choosing to pursue what is good and right and the reforms that he made in his country, and the unfortunate consequences of choosing to do something that was rather foolhardy and brought his ruin to that place, Megiddo. Which is why when people talk about Armageddon, you should not remember other people's theology. You should remember Har Megiddo, the mountain of Megiddo, and remember Josiah's choice. Remember that he could have chosen differently. Perhaps our history would have been different as well. Shabbat Shalom.